Good morning, students. It's actually a sort of a very happy occasion. I'm proud of this topic, actually, project financing. It's a very important point for all the accounts and finance people. How to raise the funds, finances for a project. It is the most critical aspect of the project. And the person who has been in this line for so many years, and you will be very happy to know so many practicalities, the procedures involved in this. It is actually what we call it as a $1,000,000 topic or a subject. Okay, with this, I am now brief about the speaker. D.Surya Prakasam is a postgraduate in commerce from Osmania University and associate member of Institute of Cost Accountants of India. Presently working as General Manager Finance and Corporate Affairs in Hyderabad Metro Rail Limited in Hyderabad from 10/9/2012. He has contributed much to the project by coordinating with the Government of India, state government, and private partner Larsen and Toubro. He is having professional experience over 40 years in the diverse areas of finance, accounts, costing, and profit center operations. He commenced career with Messrs. Lamtooth Plastics Private Limited, Hyderabad, as Assistant Accounts Officer in the year in 1980, and worked up to November 1984. In the year 1984, he got an opportunity to work as executive accounts in AP Oil Fed, a state-level public sector organization. He worked in AP Oil Fed in different capacities spanning over 27 years from 1984 to 2011, almost 27 years. He held the position of chairman of Hyderabad chapter of Cost Accountants during the year 2016 and 17, and instrumental in training members in GST, which was introduced from 1/7/2017. With this, now the session is handed out to the speaker, sir.
Thank you very much, Prakash Garu, for giving me a good opportunity to address your students. And thank you very much. You have highlighted my profile in such a way that I am a person having sound knowledge in all the areas. Thank you very much for your explanation.
Thank you.
So, I am working as a General Manager Finance. My name is D.Surya Prakasam. I am working from 2012. The Hyderabad Metro Rail project was started in 2012 and completed in 2020. As you are aware, we have completed 69 kilometers covering 3 corridors. That is, one is from Miapur to LB Nagar, Nagol to Raidurg, and third one is Jubilee bus station to MGBS. Except a small stretch of 5.5 kilometers from MGBS to Falakrama, which we are going to take up very recently. We had a meeting with the government officials and we are going to take up as early as possible. So this is about the project. So I will come back to our main subject, what is project finance. As students, you have to understand what is project and what is financing. Generally, projects will have a long gestation period and the financing is required to fund that project is very important. In such cases, what they will do, the big organizations, suppose if they have to go for their own funding, it is very difficult for them to get the funding out of the resources which they have internal. But in case of the project financing for large size projects, they will go through the loan and also equity component, and also if it is public-private partnership, that is in the form of viability cap funding. So these are the sources in the project financing. So actually, it is in the form of equity debt and some portion of gap funding by the government of India if it is a public-private partnership project, as already explained to you. What is project finance? I've already explained you. The project finance has a two component. One, the project. Project is a large project, and financing, it has to be financed over a period of 3 to 4 years to construct the project, and it will have a cash flows of about 50 to 60 years. So the whatever the investment is required for this project, it will be met from the cash flows which are received post construction of the project. What is the importance of the project financing? Actually, as already explained to you, the big companies like Reliance Industries or Tata or Birla Group, what they do, they have their own funds to invest in the projects. But in case of public-private partnership, it is very difficult to get that much funds internally from the organizations. In such cases, they will go for project financing in the form of equity and debt. The key characteristics of project financing are the debt is secured by securitizing the cash flows, whatever the cash flows they are receiving post construction of the project. That is, once it is implemented, whatever the cash flows they are getting, that will be securitized for sourcing the funds for the project. So we have seen there are different types of projects. That is, large size project, intensive capital requirement, long life, diversification opportunities, and significant cash flows. In case of large size projects, we have requirement of huge capital, and also the construction period is longer. Suppose if you take Hyderabad Metro Rail period project, which was taken up in 2012 and completed in 2020, it almost took 8 years because it has to be constructed in the heart of the city and that too by managing the traffic. The second one is intensive capital requirement. The required maximum capital. Suppose to take national highway projects or port projects or airports, we require a huge capital, say 25,000 crores to 1 lakh crores. So for such type of project, the internal recruitment, internal sourcing of funds is very difficult. That's why they go for the project financing. The third one is long life. Suppose if you take port projects, they will have long life of 100 years. Similarly, in case of metro rail project, we have a life of 60 years. So up to 60 years, there will not be any problem for this viaduct or civil structure or electrical structure or any other structures which is being constructed now. Similarly, diversification opportunities. You have seen the power plants, they have only the power generation units. But now what they are doing, because of the coal shortage, they are going for backward integration and going for coal mining. So that is, there is an opportunity for them to diversify in future. The important aspect of the project financing is significant cash flows. Instead of having a cash flows continuously from first year to 60th year, the cash flows will be there initially at a lesser rate and it will be increased over a period of time. Suppose if you take the project of Hyderabad Metro Rail project, ridership now it is around 4 lakhs. What we have projected in 2030 or 40, it will be around 40 lakhs. So those cash flows would be increasing year by year so that the project will be sustainable. This is the special purpose vehicle. Why this special purpose vehicle is required? Because we have to focus more on the vehicle. Suppose if the parent company, they may not focus much because there will be a lot of activities in the parent company. Say, for example, in our case, L&T Metro Rail. L&T is a big infrastructure company, but they want to have a separate organization to take up the Hyderabad Metro Rail project. For that, they have created Hyderabad Metro Rail, a special purpose vehicle that is called L&T Metro Rail Hyderabad Limited. So that is promoted by L&T. They are called sponsors. So in this case, this SPV is to be lent by the lenders for completing the project. That has to be given by the sponsors. Otherwise, L&T Metro Rail Hyderabad is a new organization. They will not get the funding. It has been given by a commitment by the sponsors like L&T to get the funds for this Hyderabad Metro Rail project. So these are the types of projects. As you are aware, there are different types of projects. Now, Government of India is focusing more on infrastructure development. I think nearly 20 lakh crores they are projecting to invest in the investment projects in a year, and over a period of 5 years they have planned in a bigger way. So in such cases, these projects have to be constructed through government funding is very difficult, because as you know, as you're aware, the resources of the government are very meager to meet all these requirements. So they have to depend on the public-private partnership. So in case of metro, subway, other mass transit system, dams, railway networks, power plants, ports, airports, mines, natural resource exploration, large new industrial undertaking. Suppose if you take BHL or SAIL, they are big, large industrial undertaking. So they have to take up future expansion and extensions. In such case, this project financing is very required to take up. Otherwise, the government cannot fund for these projects. Large residential and commercial buildings, as you're aware, we have seen many big malls are coming all over India to take up the future requirement of the urbanization. These are the stages in project financing. First, we have to identify the project. I am just explaining about Hyderabad Metro Rail project. Why Hyderabad requires an urban transport metro rail transport corporation? So the traffic which was there in 2000 has increased multifold by 2010, and by 2022, what we are seeing every day, the vehicles moving on the road has crossed more than 50 lakhs. So it is very difficult for the government to manage the traffic. So otherwise, a public mass transit system is available. It is very difficult to manage the traffic in Hyderabad or other cities. You have seen Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, similar cities also, they have a lot of problems with regard to the traffic management. For that, they have identified Metro Rail project is the only project which can meet the requirement of the public. So here, once that project is identified, first then they have to identify the risks. What are the risks are involved? Suppose we have taken up Hyderabad Metro Rail project in 3 corridors. What are the risks we are having? What is land acquisition, shifting of utilities, and how we have to get the funds for the project. These are the risks are there before pre-financing stage. And the third point is technical, whether elevated or underground or at grade is viable or not. This has to be analyzed in critical before taking up any project. The third important aspect is financial feasibility. We have to see the bankability of the project. Now we are going to take up elevated bus rapid transport system from Kukatpalli Housing Board to Kokapet via JNTU, ITEX, or Gachibowli. So for that, what we have done, we have calculated the internal rate of return, what we are going to get over a period of 60 years, whether this EBRTS project is financially viable or not. Otherwise, no private partner will come for this project. So it is very difficult to assess the financial feasibility of the project. The next one is financing stage. Once this pre-financing stage is over, the next part is the financing stage. Equity arrangement. The sponsors who are the, let's say in case of Hyderabad Metro Limited, the sponsor L&T has brought equity of 3,439 crores. The next, once they brought the equity, they will go for negotiation with the bankers and financial institutions for sourcing the funds for the project. That is in the form of debt. So they have to give commitment and also documentation like the term loan agreement, appraisal report. On completion of all these things, the bankers and financial institutions will disburse the loan. what is the steps the organization has to take post financing? This is more important because what is
excuse me, sir.
projected?
కొంచెం మీది వాయిస్ కొంచెం బ్రేక్ అవుతుంది. If you can check it up, please.
Otherwise, I will go for headphones. Otherwise, I will go for headphones.
Yeah, please.
Oh, how it is?
Yes. Okay.
So the important aspect is post financing, monitoring and review.
Increase change sir volume మీది.
Okay, one second.
Increase the volume.
Now, how it is this?
Yeah, okay. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Now, post financing, we have to monitor regularly and review it. Suppose what we have projected in Hyderabad Metro Rail Limited, the ridership is around 10 lakhs. But actually, what is happening? It is around 5 lakhs. Now, because of COVID, it has come down. But before COVID also, what is projected has not come. The reason for that is because the projections were taken up at the time, assuming that Hyderabad city will grow in leaps and bounds, and the requirement of the metro rail project is necessary, and they have projected on higher side to get the funding for this project. But actually, what has happened post implementation, the post implementation of the project, there are so many problems with regard to ridership, and it has to be reviewed regularly so that the organization can be on the right track. So what we used to do, we used to see what are the projections and actuals. So suppose if I have projected 5 lakhs ridership or say 10 lakh ridership, what is actual? What are the remedial measures we have to take? So here we have taken last mile connectivity and transportation arrangement also made from all the metro stations to the nearby colonies. So these are the important steps we have taken for getting the targeted projections. Similarly, we have to see the repayment. Suppose if the ridership is not what is projected has not come, we have to rebalance the or reschedule the repayment. So that has been taken up by L&T Metro because earlier the repayment has to start from 2019. Because there is a delay in execution of the project, they went for the rescheduling of the repayment. So these are the risks involved with regard to the project. One is completion risk. As I've already explained, because of the ROW problem, you have to, you have a problem by completing the project in time. So another thing is we have to select a good contractor to complete the project and also selecting a good vendors. So for example, in case of Hyderabad Metro Rail Limited, we have taken up a good contractor for completing the project. For constructing civil works, we have engaged L&T construction company. Similarly, for the trains, Rotem Hyundai, South Korea. Similarly, Thales Canada for the signaling system. So these are the important clients because otherwise it is very difficult to complete the project in time. And the second one is the price risk, hedging of foreign risk. When the project was taken up in 2012, the dollar rate was around 45 rupees. So they have hedged it around 45 to 50 rupees. Now we have seen the dollar has touched almost 77 to 78 rupees. So this price risk is there. This risk also have to be mitigated, hedging at a future date. Similarly, manpower risk. When we have taken up the project, we require civil, mechanical, electrical, finance, and other supporting organizations, supporting staff. For that, there should be a backup. Suppose if a person leaves, we should have another person immediately to take up that. Similarly, operations risk. This Hyderabad Metro Rail project, we have given it to Keolis France company for the operation and maintenance. Suppose if they are going out of this project, we have our own internal arrangement to take up this operations also. This interest rate risk, now we have seen the inflation is going up, and because of this inflation increase, the interest rate has to be swapped. Suppose at 6.5%, suppose if it is MCLR today, we have to swap it at this rate. Otherwise, if it is going on increasing, so they have to pay at a future rate. So that is why all these organizations who are there in the project financing, they will swap initially so that that interest rates will be covered. The next important point is insolvency risk, the credit strength of the sponsor. Because of L&T, so many banks have come forward to fund the project. Otherwise, it is very difficult for them to fund the project. Suppose if an organization is not having a reputed competence, they will not get the funding from the public sector banks or financial institutions. In such case, it is very difficult to take up the project. Because of L&T, all the banks, nearly 10 banks, consisting of State Bank of India, the lead bank, they have funded for this project. And other is the sharing of risk. This is a very important aspect of the project financing. As I've already explained, in traditional corporate financing, the funds used to be from the balance sheet. But whereas in case of this project financing, the funds is from off the balance sheet. That is, you are taking from the lenders by securitizing the cash flows, and the sponsors will give 30% or 20% of the equity, and government, suppose if it is a government project, they will give viability gap funding of 10%. So the risks are shared between the among the government, sponsors, and lenders. In case of the corporate finance, the funding will be taken up by the organizations by themselves. Stages in project financing, as I already explained to you, first we have to see the technical feasibility, whether location is suitable, design is suitable, adoption of updation technology, and equipment. Now we have seen electric vehicles are coming. Whether we are having updated electrical charging points and electric equipment and electric batteries to take up this project. Now EBRTS we are going to take up. So we have done several researches and which equipment is suitable for the elevated buses. So we have visited several places and inquired and got the quotations from different organizations, and which would be the latest for the elevated bus rapid transit system. Similarly, the operations. Once this elevated bus rapid transit system is constructed, then the process will depend upon the operation of the buses. So these buses have to be regularly maintained in a proper way. Otherwise, it's very difficult to complete to run the project efficiently. The next important point is financial feasibility. So we have to work out what is the business plan, that is financial model. So what is the cash outflow in the initial years? What is the cash inflow in the subsequent years? So with the assumptions. Project financial statements, we have to come with assumptions. So say the ridership, suppose initial ridership will be 4 lakhs. Over a period of time, it will increase. So that type of projections has to be made in the financial statements and assumptions. And the financing structure. Suppose if you want 100 crores for the project, so what is the grant is required if it is a government project? What is the debt is required? What is the equity is required? That structure also has to be formed. Similarly, payback period. Payback period is very important. When a private investor is investing funds, he has to get back the funds what he has invested, and also the lenders who has invested for this project have to get their amounts back with interest. So that is more important. For that, we will calculate IRR. Suppose in case of Hyderabad Metro Rail project, the internal rate of return is around 15.5%. Suppose if it is more than 14%, then only the banks or financial institutions come forward to lend the project. Similarly, the net present value. Suppose whatever the value we are getting, it has to be discounted, and what is the net present value we are going to get from the project is also will be assessed. So the stages in project financing, this is through sponsors. I have already explained. Lead sponsors. In case of Hyderabad Metro Rail project, the lead sponsor is L&T parent company, and co-sponsors, their subsidiaries also have participated, like L&T IDPL. They have also sponsored for this project. And private equity participation. In addition to the equity participation, we have got funds from private equity funding, financial institutions like NBCs and pension fund, Canada pension funds. So these are the different sources of funding L&T could secure for the project. Negotiation and syndication. This is very important. Now, once you identify the lenders, you have to give the important documents to them so that they can fund this project. So we have identified 3 levels of organizations in the lenders component, that is banks, non-banking financial institutions, international lending institutions. Syndication. So actually, in case of Hyderabad Metro Rail project, the lead fund manager was State Bank of India, and he is a leader for the project of fund syndication. And there are 10 banks, a consortium of 10 banks has supported for this project. And negotiation, the pricing, we have to negotiate with the lenders. Suppose if the viability of the project is good, you will get at a lesser rate. If the viability of the project is not up to the mark, they may enhance the interest rate. So this negotiation is very important. Our MD has had several meetings with all these bankers and financial institutions to have a minimum rate of interest, as we expected a good revenue for the private entrepreneur. Similarly, you have to go for documentation like term loan agreement, appraisal report, all these documentation we have to complete before getting the funds for the project. After completion of this pricing and documentation, we obtain the disbursement of the funds. So another important point is in project financing is commitment letters and MOUs, because the sponsors have to give a commitment letter to the bankers saying that in case of any failure, we will secure the same from internal resources of the sponsors or by government funding. So this type of commitment letters and MOU with finance is very important for getting a project financing. So here we have to give letters, offer letters, lending agreement, security document, and disbursement plan. One by once when we wanted. Suppose 2012 we have started the project. So you may not require all 14,130 crores immediately. So that you have to plan it in stages. Say in 2012 we require around 2,000 crores. In 2013, as per the progress, we require another 4,000 crores. In 2015, we require like this. So that disbursement plan is very important for the bankers to plan for the disbursement. This is also already explained. The disbursement will be in the part of equity and loan. The answer, like L&T, they have to bring the total investment at one go. Without equity investment by the L&T or the private entrepreneur, the banks will not come forward for lending. The second component is loan disbursement. As already explained to you, the loan disbursement will take up only once the equity component is funded by the sponsor. These are the important aspects of monitoring and review. So we are regularly reviewing this project. Project is running on schedule. But whereas in case of Hyderabad Metro project, there are delays in execution of the project. So we used to regularly renew it. Where are the problems? Where are the land acquisition problems? where are the shifting utilities problem. These are the very, very important issues. In case of national highway projects, we have to see whether land is acquired for the road. Similarly, in case of ports, is there any obstruction in the ports for construction of the ports? These are important aspects in large or big size, mega size projects. In case of power plant, whether the coal backup is there or not. This type of planning is required before taking up the project and also during the construction of the project. And the other important aspect as a finance person, whether the project is running within the planned cost or not. Suppose in Hyderabad Metro Rail case, what we have projected, we will complete this project by between 14,132 crores. But actually, it has not happened. It has crossed more than 18,000 to 19,000 crores. Why it has happened? Because there were delays in construction and also the foreign exchange and also the rates have increased, like the introduction of service tax and enhancement of GST and all these things have contributed for the increase in the project cost. As a finance person, what we have to do? We have to regularly monitor whether the project is going as per the projected figures or not. That we have to see so that the project can be completed in time. We have seen so many projects like ports and airports, national highways. There are so many problems with regard to the cost escalation. This cost escalation has to be borne by both the private entrepreneur and the government. So there are so many instructions were given by government of India to mitigate these problems. This project is running within the planned cost is very, very crucial for the large size projects. And project completion status reports. Once the project is completed, we have to document all the completion so that it can be a future reference for the organization to take up the maintenance at a in future level. Suppose you have seen national highways, the roads are taken up because the regular maintenance has to be taken up. Otherwise, it is very difficult to maintain the national highway in a good condition for the movement of the vehicles. Project financial status report. What is the status now? Suppose we have sourced the funds of nearly 10,500 crores as a debt. So, what is the present status? So, whether the operations are carried out as per the projections or not. Suppose if it is not carried out, what we have to do to take up the measures and all these things, we have to review every time. Similarly, project summary report we will prepare at once in a month and once in a quarter, and it will be placed before the board of directors for the review. So the very important project sustainability is the success of a project will depend on exact cash flow projections. As I've already explained, the schedule completion of the project is most important, and physical estimates, ridership, whatever we have projected, and also similarly in case of national highways, ports or airports, and financial estimate, whatever we have projected in the internal rate of return, what we have projected, and what is the cash flows we have projected, whether we are getting or not. These are important aspects for sustainability of the project. And how we are going to managing the risks in pre and post commissioning stage. In pre commissioning stage, what are the important points? In the pre commissioning stage, we have to see that the project is being completed in time. In post commissioning stage, we have to regularly see whether it is going as per the requirement or not. This is the conclusion for any successful implementation of the large size projects. This is project financing is a long-term financial scheme used for massive projects. But we have seen the government has asked the private entrepreneur to come forward to take up the projects in power, transportation, bridges, airports, and ports. Okay, government has given direction, but private partner will come forward only if there is a benefit to them. In case of government, they have the requirement of social impact and economic impact. Whereas in case of private entrepreneur, they want to have their own rate of return for their funds which they are sourcing. And the lenders also, it has to be ensured that the funds will be paid back to them along with the interest. So the success of the projects, huge projects, will depend upon the coordination among government, private sponsor, and the lenders. So this has to be regularly monitored, and if any corrections has to be taken up, they have to be taken up at a regular intervals. Otherwise, it is very difficult in India to take up such a massive program of infrastructure development. Like if you have seen power during summer, what is the requirement? What is the capacity we are having? How much we are going to increase? Whether how much is the government money is being invested in the power projects? What is the requirement of private investment? These are all these factors have to be looked into by the government. Otherwise, nobody will come forward to take up the project because the risk has to be shared among all these partners so that the large size projects can be taken. Similarly, transportation. We have several transportation projects like metro rail project, railways, urban transport projects like elevated bus rapid transport system. Because of the urbanization, earlier the urbanization was only 30 to 40%. Because of the increase in population to this urbanization, to the migration from the rural areas to the urban areas, almost by end of 2030, we are expecting 40 to 50 crore population in India will migrate to cities. To mitigate the problem, we have to develop the urban infrastructure. Develop the urban infrastructure, the funding requirement with the government is very, very minimal, very, very meager because they cannot fund for this only urban transport because they have to see several sectors, agriculture, transport, mining, and several sectors they have to look into it. Other defense, medical and healthcare, education. So this urban transportation in future, it has to come through a private partner. If it has to be come from private partner, we have to give the support to the private partner to come forward in the form of long-term repayment and interest rate reduction and some support to them in case of they have any problem with regard to the estimates, what they have estimated and what is going to be, what they are actually getting now. We have seen several national highway projects had problems with regard to the projections and actuals. So this, the government of India, Ministry of Road Transport has addressed all these problems. The Honorable Minister Nitin Gadkari has addressed and he has personally intervened to complete all these national highway projects in time. Similarly, bridges, airports. Airports also, we have seen earlier the airports were run by governments. In Hyderabad, we have given it to GMR. Similarly, in Delhi, it was also given to GMR. GVK, it was given into Bangalore, Chennai, and other places. The private participation is more because the scope is design, build, finance, operate, and transfer. They have given for a long period of 60 years so that they can get back their funds and the involvement of the government will be less in this case of this huge infrastructure projects. Similarly, ports also. We have seen. Similarly, we have seen ports also in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Mumbai, Chennai, Vizag, several places. The ports are being privatized because of the funding requirement is on higher side. So these are the important aspects of the project financing. What I want to highlight the students is the project financing is not the traditional financing. It has to be separate source of funding from the lenders and the sponsors in case of public-private partnership from the government to take up the huge projects. So this is off the balance sheet. Suppose in case of, we have seen like earlier, Reliance used to fund from their own funding. But whereas in case of the urban transport projects or airports or national highway projects, all these funding has come from the three sources like owners and also the lenders and also some support to the from the government in the form of viability gap funding, that is in the grant. So the important aspect what I want to tell the student is, students, you should understand the difference between the traditional corporate finance and the project finance. So there are several acts are involved with regard to this funding of project finance, and there are so many acts are also come into picture while funding this project. Say, for example, Banking Regulation Act 1949, Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, the guidelines, master direction, notification, and circulars issued by RBI, Foreign Exchange Management Act, Foreign Exchange Guidelines, master directions for national borrowings. Next, the regulatory authorities. There are several regulatory authorities. National Highway Authority of India, Transport and Highways for road projects, respective electricity regulatory commission for the power projects, Airports Authority of India for airports, maritime boards in respect of states, and port trust in case of ports. So there are several laws which come into the effect if you take up the project finance, Indian Contract Act, Companies Act, Transfer of Property Act, Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets, and Enforcement of Security Interest Act, that is SARFAESI, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, Code of Civil Procedures. All these important acts will come into picture. Similarly, internal treaties, when it is we are going for internal funding, free trade agreements, comprehensive economic partnership agreement, comprehensive economic cooperation agreements, preferential trade agreements. These are important aspects which a student has to understand how the funding is being done for the project. So in brief, what I will conclude is the project finance is very, very crucial in future for government or for India to take up a massive projects through tenders, sponsors, and with support of the government. The success of the project financing will depend upon the regular review, and it has to be monitored by all the time for successful completion of the projects. Thank you, Prakash Garu, and I will share about the soft skills the students have to develop.
Yeah. Sir, do you close this and then you want to
Yeah.
interact with the students?
Yeah. So,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
now
Yes, sir.
I've been working as a finance person from 1980 onwards in different organizations. I worked in, as Prakash Garu has already explained, I worked in a private sector from 80 to 84 in Balnagar and Amirpet. From there, I moved to public sector from 84 to 2011 in AP Oil Seeds Corporation. And 2012 onwards, I'm working here. What I want the students, and also I was the chairman of Institute of Cost Accountants of India for the year 2016-17. You have to develop the soft skills. Otherwise, it is very difficult to compete in the market. We have seen several of our cost accountants who are passing are not having the required capabilities to deliver what is required in the market. Because when we have inquired with the industries and the organizations who come forward for the placement, they are asking what are the communication skills your students are having. So the first important aspect is you should develop the communication skills. The second point, what I want to stress is, instead of seeing all these WhatsApp messages, Facebook, Instagram, and all, why don't you focus on business line paper, business standard, and economic times? Because you get a lot of information of the economy and where we are going. Say, I don't want to say that you have to see only stock market. There are several editorial columns are there, like the wheat export is banned by government of India. What are the repercussions are there? Similarly, now there is a shortage in coal. What are the repercussions are there? These are important aspects every student has to understand so that they can guide the organization where they are working for the benefit of the organizations. So I request all the students to focus more on these important aspects. Otherwise, other important point which I want to highlight is, Mr. Nowadays you are seeing we are going for digitalization. Earlier, our Prakash Gar also knows we used to have trial balance prepare with our pen from morning to evening to complete the trial balance. Now, once you enter the data, you are getting trial balance sheet within hours. Every day you can prepare a balance sheet. But whereas in case of our times in 80s, we used to take 3 months to complete the balance sheet by preparing trial balance, adjustment, and stock entries. So it is easy for you now through digitalization. Now in future, it is going through artificial intelligence, and also blockchain technology is coming. So I request all the students to focus more on digitalization and developing soft skill. For that, you have to give more time to enhance your capabilities to meet the market. Thank you. Thank you, Prakash Garu.
Thank you, sir. And we are happy to inform you that last week we had a program on blockchain technologies.
Okay, nice.
So CMA from Chennai, he spoke on that and he gave a sort of a, why this wide exposure on that with that PowerPoint, the presentation. We have been stressing on our these students, as you said correctly, have been telling them to watch the TV, CNBC channel, Times Business channel, and Business India magazine, because where the corporate communication, because the in English part of it, how to communication in the corporate sector. So they have to develop that sort of a skills, and we have been stressing on those points. And then I am also asking our students to raise up to that occasion so that the people like you can spot our candidates, and we wish to have. And one more project financing for the corporates means not in the government, I mean like public sector organizations like this venture capitalist and how they also go about it, and what are the the practicalities and the practical procedures. And we wish if you can also involve, we need to have a one interview board. We will interview the students and grade them also. What is this immediate for the future? You can throw some light on this, because to give a sort of a encouragement and then this motivation for the students.
No, as I already explained.
Online interviews, like we will have a online interviews for the students, and then you will question them, isn't it? Interview them and grade them also, and then we can also advise this what are the areas they have to improve, or concentrate more, or focus areas also.
Yeah, definitely, Prakash. I will definitely involve it. But what I have told you, so you have to develop the writing skills also. Suppose if you want to drop writing skills also more important for any. Suppose if you work in a government organization, we have to write in a note in the file. So suppose if a engineer has put up a proposal for taking up some work, so generally we will see the viability of the work, whether it is beneficial for the organization or not. These things we will see. So the students have to develop the writing skills, number one. As already explained, you have to focus and see the channels, what Prakash Gar has said, CNBC, Business Line, Business News, so that you will grasp it, what they are saying. Generally, I won't see any general news. I will see the CNBC news once I come from the office, because it will be very useful for us to understand where the economy is going. So now we have the problem of inflation. The GDP is coming down. The prices are increasing. In addition to that, there are international crises like Ukraine-Russia war. So the Russian in USA. So all these factors. Earlier, India is independent of all these things. Now, because of the globalization, suppose if anything has happened in US, the next day it will happen in BSE stock exchange and also NSE stock exchange. So these are the important factors students have to update themselves, so that whenever they attend any interview, they can face it without any problem.
Thanks, sir. Thanks a lot. And the students, if you have any questions to ask, the speaker is ready to help. Any more queries, please, on the topic?
Any point I can explain to you.
Any point? Are you able to hear
Are
me?
you,
Yes? All the students, do you have any doubts? No? Okay, sir.
no,
So
if you have
thanks a
any,
lot, and having spared your time, and we need more participation in IPA activities. And so
Definitely,
nice of you. You have been supporting us a lot. And with this, I request all the students to unmute the mics. Unmute the mics and give him a big. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
thank you very much for the opportunity given by Prakash Garu.
Thank you,
In
sir.
days to come also, I will definitely involve in IPA and support whatever is